over 20 years ago.
Does it say something that you're in special company with the rest of the guys who are up there now?
It sure does.
I spent my entire career hearing people describe me as calm and precise, almost as if nothing could ever rattle me. The truth is very different. I became the player people remember because certain opponents forced me to grow. I learned early that admiration in hockey is not about liking someone. It is about the respect that hits you when a player makes you rethink everything about your game. I always relied on angles, anticipation, and discipline. But there were nights when those strengths were not enough. I had to find new solutions in real time. I had to adjust my feet faster, read plays earlier, and trust my instincts more than ever. The game moved quickly in the 90s and 2000s, and I felt the pressure every night. The players who challenged me the most are the ones I remember clearly today. They pushed my mind and my positioning to the edge. They made me sharpen every detail of how I defended. Without them, I would not have lasted as long as I did. These are the 5 players I admired most because they shaped me. Let me start with number 5. Number 5, when I think about the players who forced me to elevate every part of my game, Joe Sakic is one of the first names that comes to mind. I faced him so many times during those years when Detroit and Colorado were fighting for the West, and every one of those games carried weight. The rivalry pushed both teams to extremes, and nothing came easy when he was on the ice. What impressed me most was the way he made the game look simple. He never wasted a movement. He never showed panic. He could drift into a quiet pocket of ice and then release a shot faster than I could shift my feet. His wrist shot was the cleanest I ever saw, and the timing of it created more trouble for me than raw power ever did. I remember a game in the 1999 Western Conference Finals when he came down my side on a 3-on-2. I knew he liked to shoot through screens, so I tried to hold a tight gap and take away the middle lane. He waited until my stick moved half an inch, then he slid the puck through a seam that barely existed. The pass landed on the tape and the puck was in our net before I could recover. I watched the replay afterward, and I still could not pinpoint the exact moment he decided to make that pass. That was the problem with him. He always seemed to be one step ahead. Defending him was like defending silence. He did not stare you down or try to intimidate you. He just read the play and acted at the perfect second. That kind of intelligence forces a defenseman to sharpen his own game because any hesitation turns into a scoring chance. On the penalty kill, he was dangerous in a different way. He understood how to pressure lanes without overcommitting, so I had to move the puck cleaner and quicker. There were nights when I felt like I was playing against a mirror of the game I wanted to play, calm, efficient, deadly if you relaxed for even a moment. I asked myself many times how a player could stay that composed under pressure and how many hours of repetition it must have taken to build that release. The respect I have for him comes from that consistency. Every shift felt like a test. Could I maintain perfect angles? Could I reach the puck before his timing tricked me? Could I keep him to the outside long enough for support to arrive? Some players attack you with speed, some attack you with size. Joe attacked your mind. He made you question whether your positioning was tight enough, your stick was steady enough, your reading of the play was sharp enough. There is a small group of players who never needed theatrics to dominate. He was at the center of that group. He changed the way I approached certain matchups because I knew I could not give him the same reads game after game. He would have solved them too quickly. I admire him because facing him made me refine parts of my game that no coach could ever teach. He taught me with his precision and his patience. That is why he belongs on this list. Now let me move on to number 4. Number 4, Peter Forsberg challenged me in ways that few players ever did. With most forwards, I could rely on angles and timing to guide them into areas where I felt comfortable. With Peter, nothing was predictable. He played with a combination of power balance and creativity that made every shift feel like a puzzle I had to solve in real time. When Colorado was at its peak, our matchups felt like chess, with both sides reading each other 3 moves ahead. I remember a sequence from the 2002 playoffs during the Western Conference Finals. He came into the zone on my side with the puck tucked close to his body. I tried to close the gap early because giving him space only invited trouble. He leaned into me with his shoulder, held the puck in a spot where my stick could not reach, and kept moving forward as if I was not there. Most players lose their balance when they absorb contact from a defenseman, but Peter used it as part of his motion. It felt like pushing against a tree stump. He would take the hit, keep possession, and then use the weight transfer to spin off and attack in a new direction. That strength made him unique. When he drove the net, he forced you to make a decision a half second earlier than you wanted. If you committed too soon, he would cut inside. If you waited a heartbeat too long, he would push through and create a scoring chance. There was a play in that same series when he cycled low behind our net. I mirrored him, stick in the lane, hips low, ready to pivot. He stopped suddenly, leaving me with too much momentum, then used the opening to thread a pass to the slot for a clean shot. We were fortunate our goalie made the save because it was the kind of sequence that could shift a game. Moments like that reminded me how rare his skill set was. He could dominate without relying on open space. He carried defenders on his back and still saw the ice with clarity. I asked myself many times how he managed to protect the puck so well and how he kept defenders guessing even when we knew his tendencies. His edge control forced me to refine my backward transitions. His strength forced me to use stick angles rather than body leverage. His unpredictability forced me to focus on the smallest details of positioning because losing a foot of ice against him could turn into a goal. What I admired most was the way he competed. He played with intensity but also with intelligence. He understood how to manipulate defenders and how to disguise his intentions until the last possible second. Facing him felt like facing pressure in its purest form. I had to be sharper and more disciplined every time he stepped on the ice. Opponents like that stay with you long after your career is over. That is why Peter Forsberg holds a place on this list. Now let me move on to number 3. Number 3, Pavel Bure was the kind of player who forced me to confront the limits of my speed and anticipation every single time I faced him. Most forwards give you some kind of tell. A shift of the shoulders, a change in stride length, a glance toward a passing option. With Pavel, there was nothing. He could move from a glide into full acceleration faster than anyone I ever saw, and that made defending him a different type of challenge. I remember a game early in my career when Vancouver came through Detroit. He picked up the puck near the red line with what looked like an easy angle for me to close. I took 2 strong backward strides thinking I had controlled the gap. Then in an instant, he shifted the puck to the outside, exploded toward the blue line, and left me scrambling to match a pace that felt unreal. Our goalie made a difficult save on that rush, but the feeling stayed with me. It told me that my normal timing against most players would not work against him. If I reacted at the usual moment, I would be too late. I learned to read him not through his body language, but through the rhythm of the game around him. His teammates adjusted to his tempo, and I had to do the same. Defending him meant lighting up every instinct I had. I had to stay centered over my edges and prepare for him to cut inside or outside without warning. There is a moment from the 1995 season when he created a breakaway from what looked like a harmless chip off the boards. I thought I had the angle, but he accelerated so quickly that by the time I pivoted, he was already a stride ahead. I chased him down the middle, trying to measure my stick perfectly because any mistimed reach would hand him a penalty shot. He released the puck between strides, and our goalie just managed to get a pad on it. That kind of pressure forces a defenseman to rethink how he handles space. Most times I could dictate where a rush went. With Pavel, he dictated to me. I often asked myself how a player could maintain that level of explosiveness shift after shift, and how he stayed so composed while skating faster than everyone else. The thing I admired most was not just his speed, but the confidence he had in using it. He played without fear. He attacked openings that barely existed and turned them into scoring chances. He made me refine my footwork because one misstep would open a lane he could use instantly. He pushed my positioning to a sharper place. He taught me that anticipation is not only about knowing what a player will do, but being prepared for them to do something no one else can. Facing him was a reminder that the game can tilt in a second. That is why Pavel Bure belongs on this list. Now let me move on to number 2. Number 2, Mario Lemieux challenged me in a completely different way from the others. With most elite forwards, I could use my positioning to steer the play into areas where I felt comfortable. With Mario, there were no comfortable areas. His size, his reach, and his vision created a combination that forced me to defend with absolute precision. I remember the first time I played against him early in my career. He carried the puck across the blue line with that smooth stride of his. There was no rush, no panic. It looked almost casual, but that was the danger. He slowed the game to a pace that belonged only to him, and everyone else had to adjust. I closed my gap carefully, trying to keep my stick in the passing lane. He waited just long enough for me to shift my weight, then slid a pass through a space I did not think existed. The puck reached his winger perfectly, and the play turned into a scoring chance before I could react. That moment told me everything. Mario did not attack you with speed or physical force, even though he had both. He attacked your assumptions. He made you think the play was headed in one direction, then changed it without changing his expression. What made him so difficult was that he could beat you in any way he wanted. If you tried to take away his pass, he would lean on his reach and cut inside using his frame as a shield. If you tried to pressure him early, he would delay until the lane opened. There was a play in the mid-90s on a Pittsburgh power play that I still remember clearly. He stood at the half wall waiting for movement. I watched his hips, his eyes, the stick angle, anything that might give away his intention. Nothing did. Then in one motion, he lifted the puck slightly and fired a cross-ice pass that flat out beat all four of us. Our goalie had to make a huge save just to keep the score even. You could not cheat against him. You could not overcommit. You could not guess. You had to react perfectly, and even then he might still find a way. I admired him because he forced me to trust my fundamentals at a deeper level. I had to stay balanced, keep my stick steady, and commit to angles with absolute conviction. If I hesitated, he took the space. If I rushed, he used my momentum against me. The quiet confidence he played with affected everyone on the ice. You could feel his presence even before he touched the puck. Facing him taught me that defending greatness is not about shutting a player down completely. It is about limiting the damage and making sure the mistakes you make are small ones. Mario reminded me that hockey at the highest level is as much a mental battle as a physical one. He made me a better defenseman because he demanded the highest version of my game every time I saw him. That is why he belongs at number 2. Now let me move on to number 1. Number 1, Wayne Gretzky is the player who taught me more about anticipation than anyone I ever faced. What made him different was not just his vision, but the way he controlled the pace of the game. He could slow everything down and make 20,000 people feel like the ice had opened into a larger space, only he understood. I remember facing him late in his career when he was with the Blues. I thought that with age he might have lost a step and that maybe his game would be easier to read. I was wrong within seconds. He carried the puck behind our net drifting with that familiar glide, and I followed carefully, trying to take away the passing lane to the slot. He kept his head up, never looking directly at his target, yet somehow reading every movement around him. I watched his edges, expecting him to turn one direction, but he delayed just long enough for me to adjust, then fed a pass through a gap that disappeared as soon as the puck left his stick. The play led to a scoring chance, and it told me that even when you thought you had him contained, he could rewrite the moment. What I admired most was his ability to manipulate defenders without any show of force. With most players, you can feel their intention through their posture or their stride. With Wayne, there was no obvious signal. He made you react to possibilities instead of actions, and that is the most difficult kind of pressure to defend. There was another shift when he curled off the boards near the right circle. I held my ground, stick in the lane, body balanced. He looked at the point man, which made me angle slightly toward the blue line. In that tiny adjustment, he found his window. He turned back inside and created space for a give and go that forced our entire defensive structure to shift. I spent years analyzing offensive patterns and understanding how timing shapes the game, but Wayne created patterns no system could fully account for. Facing him reminded me that the smartest players do not just see the ice. They rearrange it. His presence made me refine my reads more than any other opponent. I had to think half a second ahead and trust that my first instinct was the right one. If I hesitated, he would exploit the gap. If I overcommitted, he would slip behind me. What separated him was not simply talent, but the consistency of that talent. Game after game, he solved defenders with calm precision. I asked myself many times how one player could process information so quickly while making it look effortless. The admiration I have for him comes from the way he challenged not only my skills, but my understanding of the game itself. He showed me that hockey at its highest level is a battle of ideas and reactions. Playing against him sharpened every part of my defensive game and shaped the way I approached matchups for the rest of my career. That is why Wayne Gretzky stands at number 1 on this list. When I look back at my career, I see more than trophies and seasons. I see moments shaped by the players who forced me to grow. Joe Sakic taught me the power of quiet precision. Peter Forsberg pushed my balance and strength to places I did not know I needed. Pavel Bure challenged every instinct I had with speed that felt unreal. Mario Lemieux changed how I understood time and space and how a single decision can transform a shift. Wayne Gretzky revealed the depth of the game itself and reminded me that anticipation is a craft you build every day. These 5 players did more than challenge me. They defined my standards. They sharpened my discipline and made me understand that consistency is built under pressure. I became the player people know because these opponents demanded it from me. That is the truth behind admiration in hockey. It is not about praise. It is about recognizing the people who made you better, even when they made your job harder. When I think of my years in Detroit, I carry their impact with me. They were not just rivals. They were teachers who never spoke a word, yet delivered lessons every time they touched the ice. That is the lasting memory for me. The game moves on, but the influence stays. Now I find myself wondering who shaped the way you see the sport and which players pushed your understanding of hockey to a higher level.